Day of Reconciliation, 16 December. What does it really mean? Now, for each South African, depending which nation he deems himself to be part of or views himself as being part of, will be different. Um, I'm doing this video in English for a specific reason. I'm a boer. I'm a Afrikaner. I prefer the word boer, to be honest. I think I don't know, doesn't really matter. But we are a nation in its own, and in South Africa, there's many different nations. To be honest, it's like a little empire that's being ruled currently by the ANC. um, but there's many nations in this country. We might all view ourselves as being South African, but we are different nations. Make no mistake. And now, the day of reconciliation, for us, there was one specific date, 1838, 16th of December, formed, well, basically molded part of our nationhood, or caused us to become a nation to a large degree. And you get various interpretations of this. So mine might not be the same as someone that's from a different culture in this country. But for us as Boer people or Afrikaans people, or whichever term you prefer, this specific date means something else then for the general public in South Africa. And due to the fact that history is not being taught, I would say, in the correct fashion in the last few years or even decades potentially, a lot of that history is going down the drain, and people tend to forget where they come from and why they are who they are. Like it or not, the past influenced the future and what we end up becoming. Some of it good, some of it bad. But in regards to the 16th of December, 1838, there was an event where the Afrikaans community, stemming from Dutch, French, German settlers, they kept on moving to get out of British rule because they wanted to be a nation on their own. Most of them being farmers, skilled at farming, hunting, and all that, which gave them a significant edge in terms of surviving in the environments, which was quite rugged and rough. Now, Dingaan was at that stage the leader of the Zulu nation, another nation, and the Voortrekkers or Afrikaners, Boer, my ancestors, some of them arrived in 1700 Trente, and some of them only just before the Second Boer War. But Andries Pretorius, let's start with Pieter Retief. That's where the story actually starts. Pieter Retief and the settlers that were with him when they were moving inland from KZN, in the KZN Mpumalanga area, actually went to Dingaan, the leader of the Zulu nation at that stage, to negotiate to get some land to farm and live on. And they were requested, or they were allowed a piece of land in KwaZulu-Natal, not sure of the exact location of this piece of land, but it was large enough for many, many settlers and farms and so on. And the Dingaan, the leader of the Zulus, said that they could have that piece of land if they returned cattle that were stolen by another tribe. Not sure of the exact tribe, but this was done by Retief and his men. They actually got the cattle back, brought it to Dingaan, and at this encampment of Dingaan, they were told that there would be festivities, and they were allowed into the encampment of this Zulu king to have a feast and celebrate. And this went on for I don't know how long, but at some stage and they were told to leave their guns outside the encampment, which they did. And at some stage during this, they were getting more aggressive, these Zulu people, and they basically dragged these Boer settlers, Pieter Dief and his men, sons, two of his sons, if I'm not mistaken, some of them were still kids. They dragged them out of this encampment to a hill and slaughtered them all, killed all of them, killed his sons in front of him. There was actually a signed contract regarding this as well, according to history. But the thing is, they were all slaughtered, and after they were all slaughtered and killed, these Zulus, these Dingans followers, went to Wenen and Blaukrans, where settlers, Afrikaans, voortrekkers, were settled, and basically slaughtered women, children, men, babies, everyone that was of Afrikaner descendants or voortrekker descendants, well, ancestors. They slaughtered them all. I think about 500 people, if my memory serves me correctly. And after this, there was Andries Pretorius that came into the picture, who led the Strafkommando, if I'm not mistaken. Initially, they were tasked to take revenge for these acts, and they initially didn't have success, and then obviously the Blood River incident happened. Pieter Dief was avenged. There was about 460 men in this law. That was that's basically a collection of ox wagons pulled in a semicircle or circle next to a river. I don't know if it was the Tugela River, not sure. But they pulled their lager with all their women, children, cattle inside, and lanterns hanging between the wagons. And these wagons served as a shelter. And they knew the Zulus would be coming, Dingaan's army, and they did come on the 16th of December 1838. About apparently 20 to 30,000 men, Zulus. They crept up on the lager. It was a misty night, so visibility was poor, and these voortrekkers could hear them approaching through the course of the morning or the night, and the battle ensued. Obviously, the trekkers had weapons, gunpowder weapons, and a few cannons. One or two cannons, I'm not sure how many exactly. They were used to great effect. 3 settlers ended up being wounded, and close to 3,000, some estimates suggest closer to 10,000 casualties on the or deaths on the Zulu side, with only 3 casualties on the voortrekker side. Now, just before this incident, Andries Pretorius and the settlers, or voortrekkers, not settlers, I hate that word to be honest, made a promise to God, the God that they believe in, that we still believe in, that they would for always remember this day and pray to God and thank Him for protecting them if the battle went their way and they defeated the Zulus, which would be coming. And they promised to build a church as well, which they did afterwards. So this specific day has a large or a very big meaning to Afrikaans or Afrikaner people, and we tend to forget it because it's not being taught in our schools anymore, and not in the same way. It might be portrayed as settlers mercilessly killing the native tribes of Africa, which is bullshit, just for the record. Atrocities existed in most cultures or nations, and like I said, we are a nation of nations, a small little empire, not one that's doing very good at the moment, but an empire nonetheless, because we're many nations. A nation is people of a similar heritage or the same heritage, with a common tongue and a shared religion and beliefs. And we have many of those in South Africa. So I think it's worth for us to tell our kids about our history, because if you rely on schools and the school system to do it, you're forgetting a large piece of culture that made you who you are and caused us to be who we are. So yeah, I think we still need to honor this day. If you're a Christian, a South African, a voortrekker, Afrikaans, Afrikaner, Boer, I don't care what you call yourself, but we have a lot to be thankful for, and we need to remember that we still need to thank God for that day. Some of my ancestors were most likely there under various surnames, because it's a lot of time that passed since then to now. And I think we need to tell our kids about this, as schools are not going to do it. You're being governed, we'll all be governed by a system where the ANC, for example, is ruling all these different nations, even private enterprises through gated deployment, to be honest. So it doesn't matter which nation you belong to in this country. It's important that you keep your cultural values and remember the past and teach it to your kids, because this grey clay that they want us to be is not, in my opinion, going to work. We need to acknowledge the different nations within a nation. Not going to encourage people to be exactly the same, because we are different. We have different backgrounds. Acknowledge that background and learn from it. Each nation have or should have their own stories. Some better recorded than others, because some of us did not have written textbooks and history accounts, accurate accounts of history, because we did not have the ability to record our history, to be honest. So yeah, it's something to be proud of. We all need to look back at our history and acknowledge why we are who we are, how we became who we became. And don't rely on history books in your kid's school to teach you. History is made by those that are in power. They allow your kids to learn certain things and to not learn other things. So I think it's just very important that we remember days like this for what it is. Geloftedag. I don't recognize whatever day it's been called now. It's Geloftedag to me. It might be something else to someone else. That's cultural appropriation to me, to be honest, which they are accusing a lot of people of. What they're doing is cultural appropriation. Every culture has its own days, and for us, this is one of those days where we need to look back and be thankful, like the Americans are having Thanksgiving, and we need to be honest about the truth, or about the history. Yeah, so I think that's it. I'm not going to make this video too long. I'm Afrikaans. Usually I would do a video in Afrikaans, or prefer to do it in Afrikaans, but in this case I think it's important that people that are not from my culture or my nation understand why it's important to us. You're more than welcome to read up on history. The older the book, the more accurate the details usually is, because it gets diluted through time and people's opinions, in my opinion. Maar right, enjoy your Geloftedag.